Yo, YouTube, America, what's up? What's up, world? Because the MMA world is the entire globe, fighters from around the country. But tonight we're talking about the baddest motherfucker title, pardon the F-bomb, Nate Diaz versus Jorge Masvidal. November 2nd, Madison Square Garden, right? Is that where it is? Wherever it is. Doesn't matter. My pick for the night, no surprise, probably. A lot of people are probably picking it because he's a fan favorite. Nate Diaz. Craziest thing is Jorge's a fan favorite. Game bred. Knocked Ben Askren out with the flying knee. I think it was 5 seconds, the fastest KO in UFC history. He said he was gonna kick his ass, but that was quick. But this fight, the beauty of it, the beauty of the UFC, is we get to see the fights we want to see 9 times out of 10. Almost every time we get the fights we want. And that's what it's all about. Two of the hardest working, guys that, from a resume standpoint, the best of the best, the who's who of MMA in the lightweight as well as the middleweight division, or welterweight division rather, not the middleweight division, but the welterweight division. Nate Diaz, Jorge Masvidal, BMF title, one time only according to Dana White. But the intriguing thing about the fight is that both of these guys came off impressive victories. Nate was off for 3 years after the last Conor fight, the rematch, wanted the rubber match, wanted a title shot, 19-11, well deserving of a shot. He's beat some serious guys, been in there with serious competition. Hasn't quite been able to get a title, but always comes to fight. You never really see Nate gassed. You never see him, hurt. I mean, he gets cut up, he's bleeding, it's all oozing all over him, but he's always there in the fight. When you think he's out, he comes back, he rallies, puts guys on their heels. Had Conor scared that second time around and came back against Anthony Pettis. Just incredible. I mean, wore Showtime down, and Showtime was on the tear. I mean, he was running through guys, and Nate was able to come back after a long layoff and get the job done. And then called out Jorge Masvidal, who just knocked out Ben Askren, the guy who was undefeated his MMA career, undefeated in the UFC, had just came off a sort of controversial victory over Robbie Lawler with the choke that everybody thought he was out. His arm was kind of, and then when the ref called it, I think it was Herb Dean, Robbie popped his head out like, what are we doing? And then Jorge just hated him for some reason. I mean, they've been going back and forth in the press conferences leading up to the fight, and then Jorge came out flying. I don't know why Ben, he basically ducked into it, played right into Jorge's hand, and gave the man what he wanted, which was a finish faster than ever. Jorge, I think he's 37 or 34-17. Nate Diaz, 19-11. I mean, their win percentages are right there. Neither one of these guys in their last, 10, 20 outings have been able to string together more than 2 wins in a row, which means that they're always facing tough competition. They're always in fights. They're winning. They're losing too. So I think now this is an intriguing match because with Nate beating Anthony and Jorge beating Askren, because Askren was probably marching right up to the title picture. I mean, if he beat Jorge after beating Robbie and maybe it was one more, probably would have had a title shot. But the world didn't work out like that for Benny. I think I've watched some interviews with him, some of his podcasts and stuff, and he seems to be in good spirits unless you mention Jorge's name. But the reason why I'm taking Nate is I think you can easily be influenced by a quick knockout. Oh my God, high energy, high intensity knee, bang, game over. And Jorge has that kind of power. I don't want to count him out. I never want to count any guy out that's willing to get in the octagon and fight, risk his life, put his health on the line for 5-minute rounds up to usually 15. In this case, I think it's 25. Like it's a title fight. Nate does that. He gets into fights that are long. Oftentimes, I mean, he's been in a couple of fights with Conor that were, I think they were 5-rounders. But yeah, they were 5-rounders, even though they weren't for a title. But I think he likes that more. He's able to conserve energy. But I think Nate is just a super, super duper dog. I think I don't think he's been submitted. Maybe I think he's been submitted once on one of his losses. He's only been knocked out once, maybe twice. And then the rest are by decision. So, but the craziest thing is that the reason why it's so hard for me to choose this victory for Nate is that Jorge has more fights and he has a similar resume. I mean, he beats guys up, he knocks guys out. But he doesn't submit guys as much, and I think that's where Nate has the real advantage. Is if this fight goes to the ground, and Nate is willing to stand up and trade with guys that want to stand up and trade. I mean, he didn't force any major wrestling with Conor. Conor actually shot for the takedown in the first fight after getting rocked by some ones and twos, and then was kind of on his heels. He shot for the takedown, and then it became a jiu-jitsu, aka wrestling match that Nate ultimately won. And then the second fight, I think it was all stand up, and Conor had a great run at Nate, knocked him down I think 3 or 4 times, which was really the turning point in the fight in terms of the scorecard. So I think Nate started to wear on Conor again, and Conor was a little bit smarter the second time around, was able to conserve his energy, didn't get reckless, didn't go for a takedown during his desperation moment, and ultimately won a decision. But that fight was pretty close, but the knockdowns early, Conor was just very sharp, on fire that fight. So, but I don't think. And it's hard to say. I don't think Jorge has that kind of one knockout power. I mean, if you get hit with a knee, a flying knee, it doesn't matter who's throwing it. I mean, a knee hits you in the head, you're probably going out cold if it lands properly and flush on your chin or wherever. A knee is just a brutal attack if it's executed in that perfect manner, whether it's on the top of your head, your chin, wherever you're going to sleep. Jorge has that concussive knockout power to more of an extent than Nate does. Nate has a few knockouts, but most of his victories are by submission and decision. And I think Nate has the advantage in a longer fight that goes the distance. I think his energy kind of increases as he's getting hit, as he gets hurt, and he's building up to the 4th and 5th round. That's when Nate starts to take over fights. And that's what I think is dangerous for Jorge, I think. But it's hard to say that, right? Because Jorge, he goes the distance. He wears on guys. He beats the crap out of people. So I'm just really, really intrigued for this matchup. I got to pick a winner because that's what we do, or that's what I do, because it's only been me so far. I'm part in the F-bomb. So got to pick a winner. I'm picking Nate. I think Nate, even though he has less fights, is just a seasoned competitor, is always ready, always in shape, and just kind of has a will of steel. I think Jorge has the opportunity to maybe knock Nate out early if Nate, if he's. I think most of the knockdowns though in that second fight I think he had a bum knee. I think that was one part of it, but I don't know. I just wanted to talk about this fight. It's crazy, right? Because we've got Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker for the the middleweight championship. I do believe, if I got my numbers right, this Saturday, and this BMF fight has been overshadowing the Robert Whittaker and Israel fight. So I'm going to do that fight justice in the next video. I haven't been on the schedule that I like to be in getting these videos out, but I mean, the Jorge Masvidal Nate Diaz fight is just so intriguing because that both of the guys want to come in, they want to hurt each other, they want to beat each other up, and I'm excited to see what happens. If Nate loses, so what? We love Nate. He'll go at it again if he wants to. Jorge loses, we love Jorge. I mean, game bread. He had on the Tony Montana get up during the press conference. He said, if you're from Miami or if straight up Scarface, I think he's ready to go. I mean, it's going to be a great fight. I mean, I've never seen these guys off their game, whether they win or lose. And, I mean, they could beat anybody on any given night. And to have them fighting each other, this is what we want to see. And then I think whoever wins should get a title shot. No matter what, I think they're entertaining. I think if you put them in a title fight, that they'll sell tickets, they'll sell a pay-per-view. I think either one of those guys can do it. I think the people love Nate. I think they love Jorge. That's why this fight has been getting so much more press and so much more attention. It has so much more energy than even a title fight against a guy like Israel who's undefeated. I mean, the guy really looks like the John Jones of his division right now, when John was coming up and was young and was winning and beating guys really impressively and convincingly in knockouts and submissions. And he has, a couple of the no decision or no contest fight with DC. I'm tired as hell. I've been going to work again tomorrow and driving an hour and a half. The knockout kick to DC, the knockout to Gustafsson, and then, facing two tough young guys or younger guys coming up who been knocking guys out. So Israel is just the guy in the division right now who's really, if you got to, bet, you'll probably take him. It's probably the smarter bet. Rob's coming off of an injury layoff, hasn't been in an octagon. He's been doing some local shows and getting on the jiu-jitsu mat and wrestling with guys, but he hasn't been under the lights in a long time, and that inactivity can produce rust. he may be training, he may be fighting in different things, but it's different when you're in the UFC, in the octagon, in the big stadium. I think they're going to be in Melbourne, and you've got to face one of the most dangerous fighters of this generation. We can't say of all time yet. His resume is not long enough in the UFC as far as I'm concerned, but he does have a long kickboxing record with a lot of wins. So Israel is just, I mean, he's incredible. He showed a lot of heart and gusto in the last fight with Kelvin Gastelum, and Kev showed a lot too. So either one of those guys, Kev could be right up next and say, hey, let's get a rematch if Israel wins, or he gets a shot at the Ghost if the Ghost happens to win. I'll talk more about that fight specifically. I've been watching replays of their most recent fights and just looking at their resumes to get a sense. But Nate Diaz, Jorge Masvidal, November 2nd, Madison Square Garden. BMF title once and for all. Pardon the F-bomb. Listen, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Stay tuned for more. We're trying to keep at least the pace of 2 videos a week. But I'm a hard-working man who sits at a chair, and sometimes I'm tired, and I like to play my video game. I've got a little different background here today with the big screen in the background. But thanks for watching. Thanks for the new subscribers. More to come. T-shirts, get them at teespring.com/Parton store/Parton-the-f-bomb. We'll see you again real soon. Peace.